It would be an issue.
Yeah, so do we have another one? Use another one?
They actually can use, if it's denture stomatitis, they can use the cream.
Okay.
They could use the vaginal tab orally,
Okay.
or they could just have really good oral hygiene and also have support for the xerostomia, if that's a possibility. So we can't always, even though there are these adverse effects, we can't always say, oh, this is not a drug that this person should take, okay? It may be the right drug for them, but we have to think about the other conditions so we can help them control for them, like having the good oral hygiene, bringing them back in for a check, all of those kinds of things. We just need to be on top of it. When you looked up your drug interactions, do you remember when you did that? And you saw that there were some moderate interactions, okay? And you're like, well, no, they shouldn't take these two drugs. Sometimes people have to, okay? Risk benefit, so you take the risk of that happening. If the moderate interaction is because of the way it's metabolized and one makes the other work less or one makes the other work more, the doctor will control for the dose, okay? So it doesn't mean that those two things are mutually exclusive, that you can't use them. It just means that you have to be aware of it and control as much as you possibly can, okay? And follow up with the patient. Okay, so these are the different dose forms. Again, the vaginal tabs can be used as a lozenge. It's not pleasant. And for someone with xerostomia, do you think that might be hard to take? Yeah, so they may need to use the sugar one, and then they need to, again, control for the sugar in any way that they can. The mechanism of action is it does alter the cell membrane permeability, somewhat similar to the other one, and it's primarily against the candida infections that we're talking about. There is some absorption with this in the GI, so since some of it's absorbed, do you think we can possibly have more reactions? Yeah, okay, because if we take more of it in. So because of the absorption into the GI, you can get abdominal pain, diarrhea, and nausea, okay? And there could be actually something called an elevated liver enzyme, which would have to do with liver function. So there are people that have liver enzyme problems, so this might not be the drug for them, or we'll have to just have them maybe have that tested. There are some drugs that cause these metabolic problems, and we just have to make sure that the patient gets tested for it. This isn't, again, a decision we would make personally, something that you're aware of. You can ask the patient about it, and something the doctor should be aware of as well. Again, the xerostomia, the trouble dissolving, the sugar content, we have to keep all of those in mind. Now, another one of these drugs is called ketoconazole. This one has more adverse effects, okay? Ketoconazole, adverse effects, ketoconazole, okay? It's a stronger drug, so remember when we increase the strength, we often increase the adverse effects. It has a more diffuse effect on the body, okay? But it may be used when other antifungal agents have been ineffective. So it would be more of a second or third line drug rather than the first one that you use, okay? Because there are more adverse effects. And when you hear of someone having mucocutaneous and oral pharyngeal candidiasis, the other name for that is oral thrush. And you can hear that happening in elderly people and in children more frequently than in others. So medically, it's used for candidiasis that is chronic or non-responsive to other agents, okay? It's also used for systemic fungal infections, which are quite severe. And generally, systemic fungal infections happen in people who are quite immunocompromised. And a couple of examples of these are histoplasmosis and paracoccidiomycosis. I'm going to be able to say that. And these are things that happen again in people that are immunocompromised and can be quite severe. Some people that are severely immunocompromised, including people that have HIV, may be given this drug prophylactically. And interesting, later when we'll see some of the HIV drugs, some of them do react with it. So it's something that, if they have to be on this drug, needs to be controlled for. There's a dose form of it for the tablets, and it's 200 to 400 milligrams orally daily, and it's used for at least 2 weeks, and maybe something for someone who has this chronic issue for up to 6 to 12 months, okay? And this would be, again, for something quite severe. There is a cream that's available for skin or candidal infections, and also a shampoo for people that have dandruff, which is caused by fungus overgrowth, okay? Again, we're talking people who are severely immunocompromised. They can't fight this stuff on their own. It also alters cellular membranes, and it also interferes with intracellular enzymes. So do you see how it's having more of an effect? It's getting more into the cells. That's why it has more adverse reactions. It does work better with an acid environment. So actually, you have to be really careful if someone's taking an antacid. It actually needs the stomach acids to break it down to work. So it's better in an acidic environment. It is metabolized in the liver. Again, it goes into the system, so it can't have more adverse effects, and minimally excreted by the kidneys. So the liver is the primary place of metabolic breakup of the drug. And it's effective against a wide variety of fungal infections. So those people that are really have the systemic infection, really immunocompromised, may be put on this drug. Adverse reactions are significant. GI upset, really, really common. Nausea and vomiting, 3 to 10%. 3 to 10% is a huge number, actually, when it comes to adverse reactions. Hepatotoxicity, toxicity of the liver can be a problem, okay? It's thought to be rare, it's thought to be idiosyncratic, okay? But with chronic use, it's something that you look out for and you may expect. Headache, dizziness, drowsiness, so even some CNS effects here. Photophobia, okay, skin rash, insomnia, so it can have some severe reactions. It's a strong drug for a big problem, so it has other negative things. It can produce birth effects, so it would be contraindicated for a woman who is pregnant. It also interferes with many drugs. You're going to see this drug listed in drug interactions very frequently, including warfarin, okay, which is the drug which breaks down, which is an anticoagulant for the blood, so it could cause bleeding, and it actually could cause more bleeding. It frees the warfarin up, if you will. Another drug is called fluconazole or diflucan, and this is for oropharyngeal or esophageal candidiasis, something that's getting further into somebody's system, okay? It's also for vaginal candidiasis. It's a wonderful drug, 1 tablet, and it works. It's gone, which is wonderful. Immunocompromised patients may be given this drug preventively as well. And that's all we need to know about fluconazole. I want you familiar with all the names of those drugs. They're pretty common and very important definitely in our neck of the woods. Okay, our next animal are the viruses, okay? And they are kind of an animal. And you will notice, okay, again, here's a suffix on the word VIR, either OVIR, AVIR. So when you see this drug, a drug that is for that, you're thinking, okay, this person has some sort of viral thing going on, okay? Acyclovir, valacyclovir. Fluconazole is the only one that's different, but that's an over-the-counter one, so it makes it easy. Pencyclovir, famciclovir. And then we're going to look at, and those are drugs that are used to treat herpes simplex infection. Herpes is a virus. And also drugs that are used to treat AIDS. Yeah.
What would, you know how like a burrito, what would that ingredient be in that?
We'll cover it.
Similar to?
We'll cover it. Yep. It's over the counter though.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll cover it in a second. And then drugs that are used to treat AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, include these drugs. Okay, they are again a different animal that are specifically designed to treat these. The nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. You'll get these. Non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. And once you find out how they work, you can probably remember the name. Protease inhibitors, and then there are combination drugs. And these are very, very specific to AIDS. Okay, there are many, many drugs that treat AIDS. And people are usually on a variety of them. And then we're going to talk a little bit about chronic hepatitis as well. Okay, so viral infections are probably the nastiest animal of all. Viruses are very smart and nasty. They keep, you know how we say something's like a virus? Okay, we talk about viruses in computers. That's why they call it a virus in there, because it keeps changing and morphing. So we think, bless you, we think we figured out how to treat it and then it does something else. And then we figure out how to treat that and then it does something else, okay? It's like a changeling. It keeps changing. And so they really pose a problem in treating them. Viruses, they kind of lack certain parts of their system, if you will, and they insert themselves into humans and animals and all kinds of things to live and reproduce. They hijack our body's cells, okay? So they require us. And so when we go to kill the viruses, we actually have to harm some of our own cells, right? And that's kind of tricky. How do we harm the cells that have the virus but not our own healthy cells. And that's what the medications are aimed at. The herpes virus used to be the thing that we worried about the most. So this is back in the late 70s, early 80s, and we were worried about contracting herpes, and we were worried about getting it from and giving it to our patients and our sexual partners or whatever it might be. It was the thing that people worried about the most, okay? Until AIDS was discovered, okay? And I was a hygienist at that time when that came about, when this new virus that was just taking the lives of all kinds of people and making them very sick. And our arms were thrown up like, oh my God, what is happening here? We thought we were all going to be dying of it in a matter of years. Okay, so we worried about herpes, which is significant, until that came about. And as you see it now, having HIV infection or AIDS is not a death sentence quite anymore, is it? Okay, we hear people living with it for a longer period of time, mostly because of these drugs. There was a major amount of research and money put behind the AIDS virus, and mostly because we've learned how to deal with it pharmacologically, if you will. AIDS and HIV are significant to us because many of the symptoms are seen in the oral cavity. Some of the earliest symptoms from people, because you hear about people being HIV positive, but they don't have AIDS yet, okay? That's a little confusing sometimes. AIDS is when, autoimmune, we'll get to it. When you change from HIV to AIDS, what it is that you now have a manifestation of the infection. And some of the first ones that we see are in the oral cavity. So you may be the person that actually sees something happening there, or your patient may report something to you, okay? So symptoms of AIDS are going to be seen clinically in the mouth. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the herpes simplex virus, and we've heard of HSV1 and HSV2. There are differences between them, but they're often confused with each other, okay? They are associated, people will tell you that they have a cold sore. They won't say, I have a herpes infection, okay? Because it doesn't sound very attractive, does it? Okay, but it is the herpes virus, if you will. They also may have genital herpes. People have a hard time admitting having these diseases. So sometimes by the drugs that they're taking, you may realize that they have it, and you're a health professional, and you should be informing them as best possible. The antiviral agents are either purine or permitidine, okay? And they are analogs. They're derived from those agents, okay? And they inhibit DNA synthesis, deoxyribonucleic acid synthesis, okay? Within the viral cell, hopefully. HSV1 and HSV2, both of those have oral dental implications, if you will. The primary difference between them is where they establish their latency in the body. Where is their site of preference? What do I mean by that? We know that viruses have a tendency to hide out. We believe this, okay? This is the theory that seems to be true. They hide out in our neural tissue. If anyone here is subjected to cold sores, they always happen at the worst possible time, okay? You're going to a wedding, you went on a beach vacation, whatever it might be. We know that the sun brings them out, we know that stress brings them out, okay? They happen at the worst possible moments, okay? And that's because we think they hide in the neurological tissue, okay? HSV1, okay, hangs out in the trigeminal ganglion. We know where that is, right? Nerve cells near the ear. And the lesions tend to happen more around the lip or the face area, okay? But that doesn't mean that HSV1 doesn't occur in the genital area. It does, it's just where it has a preference. HSV2 is in the sacral ganglion, okay? At the bottom of our body, if you will, the base of the spine. And lesions tend to recur more in the genital area. Okay, that is the difference. But there's not really HSV1 up here and HSV2 down there. They can actually be reversed, okay? And this is actually an HSV1 virus sitting right there. They're kind of pretty, okay, but very, very dangerous. So the difference of where they are and what they are is not absolute, okay? They can reside in either place. Herpes simplex, this is something you're going to see. The difference I wanted to show you here is that this is your clinic patient. Which one can you treat?
The right. no idea. Say the right?
This is the one you can treat.
Because it's not active. It's like,
Right. If something is oozing, okay, and wet, you cannot treat them, okay? It's not really the best to even treat them at this point, but once it's crusted over, that's significant. If you, just to give you an idea, if you treat someone that way and you start manipulating and pulling their mouth, the liquid actually oozes out and can spread, and you can wind up giving them a very large infection, okay, by doing that. It's also more spreadable to you that way, although you're wearing gloves, you'll probably be fine, okay? But no, we do not treat patients that have an oozing lesion. Once it's crusted over, we're usually able to treat them. These people need to be treated, right, okay? What you do not do is when you get a boards patient, you never, ever, ever choose anyone who ever told you that they ever had a cold sore, because they're going to get it the morning of your exam, okay? And if they have a history of it, you're actually not allowed to choose them as your boards patient, just for that reason, okay? Go figure that.
Wait, Ms. Tremosky?
Yep.
Which one were you pointing to that you can treat?
You can treat the one where it's crusted over,
Oh, okay.
okay, where it's crusted over, because the virus is no longer replicating at that point. At this point, it's still replicating, okay? And it works very, very fast, if you will. All right?
does that like go through intact skin? Like if you touch someone that had it, you're gonna get it?
Not usually intact skin, okay, not usually. But if there's an oozing lesion, there's actually active virus and it can get into your body. Yeah, it can. It's usually through non-intact skin, but it can. So it's nothing, again, to run around screaming about, okay? You have gloves on, you're fine, okay? But if a patient has an oozing, weeping lesion like that, you do not treat them. Just so you know. Okay. One of the prime drugs that's used to treat this is called acyclovir, okay? And its antiviral action is that it interferes with the deoxyribonucleic acid polymerase, the DNA polymerase, and inhibits replication of the virus, okay? It keeps it from copying itself. It's preferentially, this is what's really important, it's preferentially taken up by infected cells. Isn't that good, okay? So it actually has an affinity for the cell with the viral infection, okay? It gravitates towards that, so that's good, right? Instead of gravitating towards our healthy cells and interfering with that DNA. Do we want drugs interfering with all the DNA in our cells? No, we do not, okay? So that's what acyclovir or Zovirax does. Its indication is for initial herpes genitalis, okay? For non-life-threatening and recurrent mucocutaneous herpes simplex virus 1 and 2 in immunocompromised people, okay, who have this happening to them frequently. Oral dosing is for initial herpes genitalis. It's not shown to be effective for labialis. It's still marketed that way. People still think it works, but it has not been shown through studies to be very effective for herpes labialis, okay? Herpes genitalius being HSV2, labialis being HSV1, okay? And also for recurrent ones. It is also injectable, available as an injectable in non-immunocompromised people. Yes, Leah?
You said that it's still marketed for labialis. Is that
Stupid?
one of the FDA's